Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Note My Objection. I'm your host, Katherine Loftus, and tonight we're talking about the Brian Walshe case, doing a little wrap-up of day 2 and day 3 of the trial. Now, Brian Walshe, accused of killing and dismembering and subsequently disposing of his wife, Anna Walshe, the mother of his children, on January 1st of 2023. We've seen the Commonwealth sort of begin their presentment of what they think happened, right? So we know that allegedly he killed her, or he allegedly disposed of her body, but what does the Commonwealth really have as evidence to convince the jury that he did in fact kill her beyond a reasonable doubt? Now, those of you who have been following along will know that he pled guilty prior to jury impanelment of counts number 2 and 3, which were misleading the police and dismembering or disinterring a body. Basically means moving it when you're not supposed to, of which he faces up to 20 years in state prison. So what the Commonwealth's job here, because they don't have a body and it's a sort of non-traditional homicide case, it's not that you can't prove a homicide without a body. Traditionally you kind of hear this like, oh, if there's no body, difficult to prove. Yes, but, it's not 1975. We live in 2025 where we're under constant surveillance. Everybody has like a GPS attached to their phone, in their car, in their iPads, in their watches, in their glasses. There's cameras everywhere on the outside. We know what the Google searches are. So it's not quite as easy to get away with it as it used to be. But the Commonwealth still has to prove, sort of the meat of like, yeah, she is actually missing. She was actually missing and she was actually dead. And she didn't just like up and disappear, which is what Walshe says. And so over the last couple of days, we've heard from a few kind of witnesses. I figured I'd just sort of go through for people. Not everybody has the ability to watch trials all day long. So first we heard yesterday, finishing up from the first day was Sergeant Smith, and he's the one who basically was the lead investigator initially, spoke with Brian Walshe, did the interviews. What really struck me about the interviews, and they went on for a long time. What struck me first about the interviews is like, it's always the guilty people. I mean, listen, it's hard for me. I like to try to stay fair and impartial, but hard for me to see any other person who, did this to his wife, but Mr. Walshe. And so I see this as, clearly he's somebody who is educated. He's intelligent. He's, basically a professional kind of scammer. And so he thinks he can outsmart everybody. I mean, think about the fact that this guy chopped up his wife and got rid of the body. And he's just sitting around with the kids. Oh, feed y'all do this, oh, this and that. And he's talking about, like not a care in the world. But he also is, he's pretty good. There's like not a lot of, he doesn't seem nervous. There's no hesitation. So clearly this is somebody who is familiar with lying. And we know he's familiar with lying because he was convicted in federal court, and then he just pled guilty to lying to the police officers in this case. And so, what the Commonwealth is basically presenting is like, look, from the very start, this guy, he doesn't even call, for help. He doesn't call, let's just say my wife is missing. He doesn't call himself for 4 days. What are you talking about? You got little kids with this woman. She just like she just disappears at 5:00 in the morning, gets in an Uber, and you don't hear from her again. You're not concerned enough to call the police. You wait for the former Secret Service guy who's head of HR security in DC to call in the Metro DC PD to search the house and to call Cohasset. Like, okay, so like right off the rip, you're presenting, for someone like, this is what's fascinating. For someone who's so smart and is like being meticulous with certain things, it's like so sloppy in others. Like in the interview, he slips and talks about her in the past test, like, oh, she was this, she was a great mom, she was this, blah, blah, blah. Well, what are you talking about? She's missing, bro. Why are you talking like she's dead? You know what I mean? So we heard about that whole thing. Then we heard from Guarino. And the Google searches. I mean, listen, we all knew the Google searches were bad, but like hearing them out loud and looking at the guy right in front of you and then knowing what they find, it's like, whoa, brother, like these are bad. It's hard. I have a hard time imagining that like the jury can get around what this guy is Googling, which is, basically how long, does it till a decomposing body starts to smell. What else did he say? Talking about formaldehyde. What's the best way to dismember? Can you identify a body with teeth? I mean, so think about that. Like, bro, you're Googling about, like, removing your wife's teeth, like the mother of your children. It's so hard for me to process. It really is. And I know people do crazy things. Like, I am not above that. Like, I understand sometimes when people get in this fight or flight mode, you can, like, otherwise be a normal person. You can do crazy things. But hard for me when your kids are upstairs, like, this is what you're doing. But nonetheless, so they have Guarino. And, all of these witnesses are strong for the Commonwealth. I mean, they just are. There's no real way around that. And the defense's job is just to attack, as much as their credibility as they can, attack the process, attack how things were interpreted. But ultimately, the evidence, like the substance of the evidence is pretty strong. So I don't know how much inroads they're really going to make that are actually going to be effective in, like, if the goal is to get the client off. It's tough. I mean, the defense team here has an uphill battle for sure. So we heard from Schmidt, Guarino, and then we heard sort of a litany, quick, in and out. We heard from Uber and Lyft, who both testified that she didn't take an Uber or Lyft that morning. We heard from only Boston, like literally all politics is local. The thing about Boston, the thing about Massachusetts is we're small and we're like incestuous, and there's always someone somewhere. So the witness gets on and says he's the head of, I think, corporate security at JetBlue. And then he says his name's Tom Menino, Menino. I'm like, Tom Menino, his father was a former mayor of the city of Boston for a long time, Hyde Park. So it's just funny because it's like, the former mayor's son ends up, in the middle of a televised homicide trial. Only here. The one of the witnesses I really liked was the female state police. I don't know if she was a detective or just a trooper, but she was with like a specialized unit that basically went to like search for people. So she went down to DC to search Anna Walsh's apartment and condo and like just talked about how, how it was set up, how it was neat. Basically, we didn't find her there. So what they're doing, the Commonwealth is like laying out this sort of timeline of, okay, this is what happens before Christmas. This is what happens at Christmas. This is what happens leading up to New Year's. And then all of a sudden she's gone, but he doesn't say anything for 4 days. Doesn't say anything for 4 days. The first person to call in a missing person report is the guy from the Secret Service guy from DC on the 4th. And so the Commonwealth is like, okay, so look, like she goes missing. And now we know, like they're gonna admit to the jury that basically he did that. Basically, he disposed of her body, which is just great. I mean, it's crazy. It is really crazy to think, like, your job is obviously you try to get your client off, but you got to know at some point, like, all right, well, I don't think we're escaping this one, my friend. So, what is the next best solution? I don't think the next best solution is getting up there and being like, she was asleep in bed and dead, and I just, like, did all this. I went out and bought a hatchet and a hacksaw and a Tyvek suit and formaldehyde and Googled, if I take her teeth out, can you identify her? Like, that seems like, that does not seem to be, like, commensurate with, you know what I mean? Like, this doesn't equal this. I don't think finding her asleep in bed and being like, I'm worried that people are going to think it's me. Well, chopping up her body and throwing it away will probably make people think it's you, brother. I'm sorry. It's like, I don't know. So I'm like, why is he? It's like, I'm a little like, what are we doing here? I don't know. It feels a little that way. Like, what are we doing here? I'm confused about the strategy. Why wouldn't we say it was an accident? Because then I could actually, in a crazy mind, if you're in like a psycho space mind, and like, you push her down the stairs by accident, she's got a broken neck and she's at the bottom and you're like, oh my God, I'm on federal probation. My kids have nowhere else to go. What am I going to do? I got to get rid of her. And you freak out and do that. I could actually buy that. Okay. It's still murder, but like maybe second degree or, but to say you found her in bed, he's going to get up on the stand and say he found her in bed. What? Like, and if he gets on the stand, they're going to be like, so did you start with her head chopping it up? Did you start with her finger? Did you start with, like, that's how he's going to be cross-examined on, like, what he did with the body and stuff. It's like, it's crazy. So anyway, I loved the state police trooper. She was great. She was, like, very direct and straightforward. They had the owner of the property. I didn't realize that they were renting. So first of all, he said he talked about how he came over a couple of times for, like, a couple of different things. And one of them was to tighten a hinge on the hutch in the kitchen. I'm like, my friend, you can't get a screwdriver and tighten it. You're calling the landlord to tighten a hinge? Problematic. Okay, red flag, number one in a man. But that Brian called about the cameras, he thought it was, I think he said it was on the first, and basically asked the landlord, like, oh, are there any cameras? Like, we can't find my wife or something like that where she's missing. And he said, no, we don't have them, at the property or the building, which he owns nearby, but you might want to check around here. And so that, for the Commonwealth, like, they're trying to lay that, like, this guy is trying to methodically plan out, like, all these normal things. I'm going to do all these normal things so it makes it look like, oh, I really don't know where she is, right? So they find that, he calls next they called the insurance agent. And I think it was interesting. I always think it's interesting about insurance, and people are like, gonna collect, he killed it for the life insurance or killed this and that. I don't know. To me, life insurance is like, if you're a responsible adult in any sense of the word, like and you have kids, like, you should have life insurance. So I don't know that it's like, having life insurance for your husband or your wife or your kids is pretty normal. Is it a benefit if they end up dead? Yes, it is. But I don't know about, like, making the argument that, like, oh, you could collect this and that is overly persuasive. But he was interested. He talked about the difference between term life insurance, whole life insurance. Not legal advice, but I will tell you, if you are married and have children, have assets and properties, things like that, or particularly if without your income, your family cannot survive, make sure you have life insurance. It's one of the most important things, especially if you're young. Get term life insurance. It's cheap. It's the best peace of mind ever. I know that if I go, I do sound like an ad. My house will be paid for. Everything will be paid for. The stuff for the kids. It's the best money I spend every month. So then they call the crime scene specialist. He talks about what they recovered in the dumpster, and, basically everything's got reddish brown stains on it. And so he doesn't testify that it's her blood or his blood. Somebody else is going to testify to that. At the state police lab, like, there's certain technicians do certain things. Some of it collect, some of it, enter into evidence, some of it analyze, some of it oversee, all that kind of stuff. So, but basically, he talks about there was a hatchet with what appears to be, red blood, red brown stains, a jacket, a bathrobe, I think towels. There was like 16 latex gloves in the middle console. Find some reddish brown stains in the car. So, there's a lot of evidence here. You know what I mean? There's a lot of evidence that something happened to her body, and then it was like spread in all different kinds of places. So it's the Commonwealth is doing a good job, and it's an uphill battle for the defense. I mean, I think we all know that. It seems to be apparent from its face that this is not an easy case for the defense to win, but they're going to try nonetheless because that's their job. So at the end, it was really interesting, and the feed went out a little bit, and I tried to take a peek at the docket first. So they had some conversations about motions in limine that had been filed previously. Now, my first interpretation was that the Commonwealth was filing a motion to admit evidence of Walshe's guilty pleas. But when I went on the docket, it actually says the Commonwealth filed a motion to exclude evidence of the defendant's guilty pleas. And then when I went back and watched it again, Judge Fournier actually looked like she was talking more to the defense when she was saying, if you want these in, you have to explain to me why they're relevant and why it's basically tell the jury to do exactly what we generally tell them not to do, which is, generally, like, the Commonwealth could never say, like, hey, he pled guilty to this, because what that is like we call it propensity evidence. It's basically you make the argument like, well, he did this, so yeah, most likely he did this. You can't make that argument as the Commonwealth. But if the defense is trying to bring it in as part of their strategy, now I don't know who they would bring that in through, if it would just come in through him. And basically the judge was like, you have to tell me, defense, why it is relevant, why it has additional relevance that he pled guilty to the charges outside of the fact that he's already going to testify to this, which is what we all inferred from the opening statements, because Larry Tipton said, you'll hear that he went down to wash the dishes. You'll hear that he went up in the room and, poked her and she was dead, and poked her again and then poked her the last time and she fell over. And nobody else can tell us that unless he does. But I mean, that'll be a day. That'll be a day if he gets up on the stand, because really think about, like, he admitted to getting rid of his wife's body. Okay? And we know how he did it. It's not like he just not that it would be any better, but a little bit it would be, is if you'd be like, I just buried her over there. You chopped her up, bro. Okay? And also the fact that he was Googling, is it better to, what did he say? Is it better to dispose of or to wash, crime scene stuff? No. The fact that he put all those in a dumpster, this guy is simultaneously smart. He's clearly smart, but he's not that smart, because he put everything in places where you could find them. You know what I mean? And it's burn that shit. I'm sorry, not advice, but if you do, don't be keeping them around. Don't let them. They should be gone, incinerated. I'm sorry. That's crazy and all together with her stuff, COVID card, the boots, or Hermes watch. It's okay. It's, you just the human psychology is fine, is fascinating, because you just think about how do people get to this place that they make these decisions, and then they're just freaking out on the back end, and they're being sloppy, because listen, what's the likelihood of you getting away with something like this? So you're going to be sloppy. And he's not a killer criminal. This is unless he did it to somebody else, but no, we don't have, no, I'm just saying, this is a one-time thing. So obviously you're going to be freaking out, but then he's just on tape. Acting so nonchalant, no big deal, Anna's missing. So I'm fascinated. I think we all know likely what the outcome is going to be, but I'm interested to see how the defense tries to present or tries to use evidence that, imagine that. Imagine the defense trying to use evidence that he pled guilty to getting rid of his wife's body. That's how I'm interpreting what the motion was, because it's the Commonwealth's motion to exclude evidence of the plea. It's not the Commonwealth's motion to admit that. It's the Commonwealth's motion to exclude evidence of the November plea, which the natural inference is that means that the defendant is trying to admit it. So interesting. Anyway, I will see you. I'll be on Surviving the Survivor podcast streaming in the morning tomorrow, and then I'll be down here with them again at 7 o'clock streaming, kind of a wrap up of the trial, and we'll go from there. Thanks for listening. Good night.
If you like this episode, please comment, share, and subscribe. Every bit helps. Thanks for watching Note My Objection. See you next week.